From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater. Radio 111 presents Bonnie G. and Brayan Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brayan.
And welcome to The Desert Scene. Good morning on this beautiful Saturday morning. Gorgeous weather. How are you doing, Brayan?
I'm doing much better. I think the audience can hear that my voice is a lot better now, and so I feel better. I just hate the fact that, like, after you get over a cold, you still have a cough. It's like, go away. What you're doing here.
I had in the middle of the week, I had a little bit of a cold thing going on, congestion and stuff, but it was pretty mild, and it was just a quickie thing. So I want to tell you real quick about this movie premiere that Eric and I went to last night. My dear friend Jack Lyons, who is my honorary dad, who I used to co-host a show with back at another radio station. Great guy. He just turned 90 and he looks great. But he's a press guy. He writes film critiques and theater critiques here in LA for years. And he got a press ticket to the premiere of this movie, Out of Nowheresville, that premiered last night at the Mary Pickford. Tom Sizemore was the star, and the Platters did the soundtrack. And it was really fun. It was really interesting, very entertaining movie, kind of violent, lots of shooting and stuff. But it was all shot locally. So you saw the windmills and the desert lodge, and there was a character that ends up in the hospital. And it was clear that it was, I think it was Eisenhower, but they called it something else. They changed the name of the hospital. They called the area Palm Cove instead of Palm Springs. But it was very interesting. I thought it was very entertaining. And they had the new Platters, of course, the original ones, but the new Platters, which has a woman in it, 3 guys and a woman, came out in front of the screen and did a whole little medley before the movie started. Absolutely fabulous. Their harmonies and they are featured in the soundtrack of the movie, which really adds a lot to the movie. But thank you to Jack Lyons, my dear friend, my honorary dad. And I have to get this gentleman's name, the writer, director, and producer. Let me find it. Kevin McVey, McVey. It's called Out of Nowheresville. It's an independent film and premiered at the Mary Pickford, and Tom Sizemore is in it. And it's very interesting. I think it's very entertaining. Well done, kind of violent. So, got to know that going in. But it was all shot locally. So it was really fun. So thank you to Jack. Thank you to the Platters, to Tom Sizemore, to Kevin McVey, and the Mary Pickford. It was a fun evening.
I'll have to check that movie out. Like, you're kind of selling it to me pretty well. I was going to say, like, and they were there, the Platters, you said?
The new version of the Platters,
Platter.
the young, but fabulous. And they just walked out. The Mary Pickford, there's great seats in the Mary Pickford. They walked out in front, a little stage in front of the screen, and a cappella did a little medley. Fabulous. Just Twilight Time, Only You, all the Platters hits. Absolutely phenomenal. Really, really good. It was great.
I should have gone to that screening, but that sounds like a lot of fun. Like a lot of things happening in that screening.
It really, and then they had a little question and answer thing afterwards with Tom Sizemore was there and some other people in the cast, and Manny the movie guy from NBC did their little question and answer thing. So it was a really fun evening. So thank you, Jack.
I'll have to check that out. But you know what? The one thing I did this week that was kind of related to like going out and all that was I saw the McCollum Theater put out a new ad. Like, I don't know, have you gotten the booklet for it yet?
I think we got it. I have to double check.
I got it this week, and I saw that Bernadette Peters was coming to town, so I was like, I'm going to buy tickets instantly. So I bought some tickets right then and there, and I was...
Good for you. She's fabulous. I love her voice. She's a hell of a singer, yeah.
I was gushing over her, and the thing was, I was trying to see if they had VIP tickets, but I guess they don't have VIP tickets because of the fact that, like, well, because of COVID and all that, and also because of yeah. Because I would love to meet Bernadette Peters and all that, because it's one of those artists where her music really got to me during the pandemic, like during that time where I just connected so much with her music that I just wanted to meet her and be like, thank you, Bernadette, you made my isolation a little bit less difficult.
The person that, and I love Bernadette Peters, the person that I love who comes to the McCallum fairly almost every season, and I don't know if she's this year, but is Linda Eder. Do you know who Linda Eder is?
Yes, Linda Eder.
Love Linda Eder. She is, as a singer, one of my, perhaps the top idol. I mean, she has her instrument is just amazing. I mean, she has like 3 or 4 octaves. If you've ever heard her, I have her Christmas CD, and her Christmas CD, she does a version of Silent Night with it's in a round, and she has this choir behind her, and it's perhaps the most beautiful version of Silent Night I've ever heard. ever, ever, ever.
You know, we'll have to get that on our Christmas special because that sounds beautiful.
She just has this instrument and very emotional. I mean, she is. I mean, some people have a beautiful, technically sing beautifully, but you don't feel much. With her, you have the whole thing. Yeah.
You know, I think Linda Eder and Bernadette Peters are kind of like the types of singers who are brilliant technically, like that's great, but then they also have that emotion in their voice.
Move the audience. Yes, and that's what I love to see. But she's just, I mean, I saw her once at the McCallum years ago. One of these days I'm going to go back and see her again.
Now I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with Sarah Brightman?
Of course. Oh my God. Yes.
Would you consider her the type of singer who's more technically brilliant, more so than an emotionally gripping singer? Because I've heard some criticism.
You know, I haven't seen, I've never seen her live, but I've seen her on PBS specials and that kind of stuff. I'd say she's a little more on the technical side, I think. And she has a beautiful instrument. You know, I mean, obviously she's got a gorgeous voice. I am more partial to a little less operatic sounds. You know, yeah. I mean, Linda Eder's a little more Broadway pop. I mean, she can do the high notes, but I think I like Sarah Brightman. I think she's great. But I think she's maybe a little more on the technical side.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's more of like, if you're watching a show, you're more likely to notice a Kristen Chenoweth than in a Dina Menzel sort of thing, right?
Well, both of them. But see, both of them are really Broadway, you know, and I think acting comes... And Sarah Brightman's fabulous. I'm not pulling... But if someone said, you want free tickets to see Linda Eder or you want free tickets to see Sarah Brightman? I'm going to Linda Eder. So.
Well, that's what I imagine because, like, because for a while I love Sarah Brightman, but the reason why I bring this up is because like there is a thing of like technical versus emotive singers where I've seen some singers who are brilliant from a technical level, like their voice is mastered.
But you don't feel that much.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And Sarah Brightman, I love her music, but for some reason, like I listen to the song Unexpected Song, and Sarah Brightman originated that song on Broadway. It's a good version, but for some reason, like the one time she sang it where she wasn't technically brilliant, like she actually had evidently a weaker voice that day, it was a much stronger rendition because she put more emotion in that one rather than like the CD version where she's like
technically perfect,
perfect and all that. And Bernadette Peters is one of those artists that I would worry that somebody might say her voice is bad, but I've never heard a single person complain about her voice. Because she's that good in emoting.
Oh yeah, she can sell the heck out of a song, absolutely.
Yeah. And like, I think for me the reason why I don't connect as much to like Patti LuPone's singing as much is because of the technicality thing. Because I feel like she's a brilliant singer, but I've seen some of her versions of songs where I'm like, I'm not connected to that version. I'm connected more to this other artist version. And it's very rare that I prefer like the Patti LuPone version of things.
And then there's people like, in my personal opinion, you take Edith Piaf, who I never like, much too much vibrato, and even Judy Garland, especially in her later years. Judy Garland, in my opinion, wasn't that great a technical singer, but she put her heart and soul and guts on the stage. I mean, she just put it all out there, and that's why people love her. But technically, especially in her later years, she wasn't that great a singer technically.
I remember I was watching the Judy movie, and one of the things I said to someone was, they got Renee Zellweger to sing the part for her, to sing the part instead of dubbing in Judy. But I was a little disappointed by the fact that like she tried singing Judy in a way that's very like perfect versus how she actually was towards the end of her life, which was her voice was scratchier, her
little wobbly,
and she had, not to say she broke down a lot, but she clearly was not there.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised by the fact that like that's what they did in the movie. And for me, like, I love that Judy Garland at Carnegie Hall album, but I do love it for its flaws. I do love the fact that she messes up and she has her flaws and all that stuff. But if anything, there's one artist that I'm trying to remember who, I think Mario Bava or something. Not Mario Bava. Mario. I'm trying to remember him.
Is he an opera guy?
Yeah. I think it's Mario Lanza.
Lanza, thank you. I was going to say Lamas, but I know Lanza, yeah.
I love his singing, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Edith Piaf. Your Edith Piaf is my Mario Alonso. Like I just don't connect as much as I used to. But like Edith Piaf to me is kind of interesting because I think she's brilliant and I love her, but I can see why. Like
I don't like that.
Like for some reason, like I used to do this impression of her where I went around like something like that, and it's like it's a lot of vibrato.
Too much for me.
And I can but I can see that. That's what I'm saying is like I can see the Edith Piaf criticism because I feel like it's brilliant. You can sit there and say it's a good voice, but it's a type of voice that I can see someone getting irritated by because of a lot of vibrato.
Hello. So that's why I love the people that have both. Like Linda Adair has a gorgeous instrument, technically, but it, puts her guts out there. And same with Bernadette Peters. I mean, I think Linda Adair's voice technically is a little better than Bernadette Peters, but she puts the emotion in it too, and I like that combination.
And for me, I also think that. Like I'm trying to think. Like I think there is one artist that I think is technically brilliant, but surprisingly is very emotive. Julie Andrews.
Yeah, she can't sing anymore though.
No, that's true.
But no, absolutely, yeah. And she was born with a gift. I mean, she just had that voice. It doesn't come along that often. But yes, she put emotion into it too. Absolutely.
Betty Buckley. Betty Buckley and all that. The weird thing is that like I was watching the original one of the original Tony performances of Cats with Betty Buckley, and she just blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
And she shows that you can be technically brilliant, but also really know how to show emotion. Because with Cats, that song Memory is one of those songs where I've only seen a few good versions of it, which is Elaine Page, Betty Buckley, and Nicole. I forgot her last name, but I've seen some people perform Memory where they're crying their eyes out. And I'm not saying that they're not allowed to cry. I'm just saying that they should not cry so loud that the voice is hurt by it. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that where somebody cries during a performance and their singing just gets worse. And it's like, okay, please do not make
snivel and snort all over the place. Yeah. You got to control it a little bit. I mean, it's great to have the performer be so connected to the song and the material that they're moved emotionally too. But if you're performing, you got to control it enough to still give a good performance. Yeah.
You know who I would have loved to have seen live? Carol Channing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Carol Channing but honestly, I was gonna say like Mary Martin, but no. But I was born 94.
Yeah, Mary Martin, and of course she was a great actress and fun. I mean, it wasn't a fabulous voice. I mean, she had a good enough Broadway voice to get by. But
I think she's definitely the other example, which is not technically brilliant voice, but the emotion sells it, like that Peter Pan voice.
And being a good actress, you have to be a good actress as well. All right, now that we've sliced and diced singers. All right, we'll be back with some more entertainment news and some great guests a little bit later on The Desert Scene.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brayan Mendoza.
This might be one of those two segment news stories, but Astroworld.
So sad.
So Astroworld, what happened was that Astroworld is this big concert like Coachella, but in Texas. And what it is that Travis Scott, this rapper, basically put on a show for the last Saturday's Astroworld. So, so it is kind of one of those stories where a lot of stuff happens, and so I'm just going to say this. So my best understanding is that the crowd got really rowdy and out of control, and there was no precautions, no security, very little security, abysmal way of of
Yeah.
segregating the audience a little bit. So the audience kind of crushed, and that's what it is.
Rushed the stage.
Rushed the stage.
Didn't he encourage them though? And he's done that before.
Yes,
I understand.
I'll definitely get into that. But like, for the moment, 9 people died, and a couple people, and way more were injured as more people were crowding the stage, rushing towards it, causing people to fall,
Get
trampled, crushed, killed. People were dying, and it was described as hell on earth. And what had happened was, one of the more controversial elements of this is that as people were dying, Travis Scott continued to play.
Yeah.
And they say the show must go on, but it doesn't literally mean that.
No,
we don't.
Not in that situation.
Definitely not. And what happened was that the show eventually went to its natural end.
Mm-hmm.
But from my understanding, there are YouTube videos of people screaming, "Stop the show!"
Yeah.
And a teenager running up to the cameraman and telling him, "Please stop the show because there's somebody dying."
Yeah.
And a body being dragged out as the show plays on. And Travis Scott apologized on Instagram the next day, but it was not sufficient as people felt. It looked bad. It looks really bad when you apologize after you play music during a concert.
Yeah, when people are dying. And again, I understand that he's done this before, and there've been injuries at other of his events.
Yes.
And where was the security? Why was the security lax?
And from my understanding is that the past events was that Travis Scott actually went to jail for inciting a riot within his audience.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was that like he's had incidents where he would encourage audience members to get crazy and rowdy and just have a quote unquote good time. And it's one of those things where like Travis Scott I think he confuses having a good time with hurting people, or at least like he thinks that, nobody's really going to get hurt, And so it's one of those things too where it's one of those things where he encouraged a man. There was one time where a man took his shoe and he was crowd surfing, right? And this man was so I think Travis Scott was crowd surfing, and someone took his shoe off of his foot, which, not the best conduct, but, you can just tell that fan, hey, give it back.
Yeah. And what happened?
So what happened was that he told the crowd, F him up. And so the crowd beat up the guy. And so there was another situation where, like, somebody might have done something to Travis Scott, which wasn't a big deal because, I'm sure if you were at a performance and someone took your shoe, you wouldn't tell them to beat them up. You'd be like, hey, can you give it back?
My shoe, yeah.
And also you're rich, so you can afford more shoes.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where he's done this so often that he also told them in 2015, he also told his fans, ignore security and rush up to the stage. So Travis Scott is not exactly someone that I believe, quite frankly, can control the crowd. And
apparently not.
No, and he is getting sued.
Good.
Hundreds of people are suing him. Lawyers are coming up. Families, people. It's one of those things where it's just horrible. But I was going to ask you, what was your initial reaction when you first heard of this?
Well, like I mentioned before, first of all, my initial reaction is, why in the heck would anybody ever want to go to something like that? Because I'm claustrophobic, and being in the middle of a big crowd of thousands of people makes me panic. So I wouldn't be there, number one. But I think that, especially hearing what you just said, that he told the crowd, it's time, and we'll leave the political stuff out of it, but anyone who deliberately riles up a crowd, an already energized, perhaps agitated, large crowd of people to commit violence, whether you're kidding or not, should be held accountable. Especially if someone is hurt or dies as a result of it. Absolutely, should be sued.
And one of the things was that at one of his other events, like a long time ago, it was so bad that like one of his fans got paralyzed.
Did they sue? I hope they got some money.
No, they tried to sue too.
Yeah.
They said that basically that Travis Scott is basically one of those people that he wants the audience to have this energy, but I don't think he understands that like an excited audience does not mean you have to beat people up
or like rush the stage or trample people.
And I feel like this is just one of those things where this was a disaster. It didn't need to happen, in my opinion. It did not.
And I heard that there's a rumor that he's going to be canceled from Coachella, which I hope they do.
I didn't hear anything about it, but
I sure hope they don't have him at Coachella.
No, because at Coachella, like, I don't want to hear about it happening here.
No.
And I don't want to hear about it again.
I think it should be boycotted, frankly, for live performances.
And there are some people that are really considering the boycott, but we'll talk about this a little bit later on.
All right, more on the desert scene in just a bit.
Bonnie and Brian continue with the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and so excited to be joined now by our first guest today, Jeffrey Scott Adair, singer, dancer, amazing resume we've got here, and he's involved with a big event, Youth Theater Players, a big global event. It was actually last night, today, tonight, and tomorrow. Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So, first of all, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into this event. So, you are you're now based in Rancho Mirage, but started in LA and the Vegas as far as performing.
I actually grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and started doing theater up there, and then went to Vegas after that.
And so, did you always know as a kid? You always knew that performing was your future?
I didn't actually. I was really pretty shy in high school and kind of fell into it by accident. Somebody dropped out of the high school musical, The Music Man, and they said, "You want to give it a try?" And I did, and from then I was hooked.
Were you the lead? Were you Harold Hill?
No. I was just in the chorus.
Okay.
I had one line,
Okay.
And danced with the kids, but, it was... The thrill of being on stage, got me. So that was it for me.
Now, was your family supportive of this as a career choice for you?
They were, although they thought I was sort of like, an alien or something, because no one in my family performed ever. And so they were like, where did this come from? But they always, came and saw everything I did and supported me, and all through my life.
And so, tell me, you've done some stuff in Vegas. Tell me about your Vegas experience.
So my first Vegas show was at the old MGM Grand in a show called Hallelujah Hollywood.
Okay.
And I was 20 years old and started there. And then I went to the Lido de Paris at the Stardust Hotel, and then left for a couple of years. I actually lived in Europe for a couple of years, and then went back to Vegas with a show called Beach Blanket Babylon, which was the longest-running cabaret show in the world, based in San Francisco. And they had a iteration of it at the Sands Hotel in the old Copa Room where the Rat Pack used to play.
Oh, how fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
very exciting to be on the stage where, Tammy and Dean and Frank, used to perform, just thinking about, they sit on the same boards that I did.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great feeling. So would you say that you're singer, dancer, actor, or what comes number one in that list?
Well, it used to be dancing, but now it's my advanced stage. It's more singing.
Okay.
But, I still... Once you know how to do it, you never forget how to do it. So I guess I'm a singer that moves now.
Okay, all right. And so what? So now what made you come out here to the desert?
Well, we always loved coming down here from Northern California, on vacation. And as we decided to sort of wind down our business and kind of simplify life, it was always our dream to actually move here and sort of semi-retire. And we did it all during COVID, which was very interesting, but we got it done.
Yeah.
We're here.
And now I'm looking at your resume, special skills, millinery hat construction. So you make hats. So how did that come about?
again, sort of a little bit by accident, I was actually in Beach Blanket Babylon, which is known for its extravagant and gigantic hat. And we were opening the show in Vegas, and the deadline was coming before opening night. And Steve Silver, the producer, said, "I really need help with, finishing some of these hats, and they've got too many to do. Does anybody know anything, about, crafts or anything?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm artsy, so I'll give it a try." And so I got taught by some of the hat makers in the show how to construct the hats, and then I eventually became the hat master in the show. So I was dancing in the show and making the hats, and eventually got to work on the Academy Awards with Beach Blanket Babylon, and when they did the infamous Snow White and Rob Lowe opening number of the Academy Awards.
Yes. How fun. Now, is that something, do you still do hats from time to time these days?
I do. Yeah, I do them, just kind of for fun and for friends and that kind of thing. Nothing, nothing too big, but who knows? Maybe now that theater companies know I can do it, then
yeah, you could be the hat guy. Okay, so let's talk about youth theater players. So how did you get involved with them at MTU to begin with?
Well, I saw a notice that they were looking for adult singers to do a benefit, and I knew about the event that MTI was planning. They were giving over the rights to 45 songs for theater companies to use as a charity. And I thought, gosh, this would be a nice, easy way for me to sort of, sing for the first time in Coachella Valley and kind of dip my foot back into the theater scene down here. So, I contacted them. I sent them a couple tapes of me singing, and they said, yes, we'd love to have you come and sing, and that's kind of how it happened.
So tell me how this is working. So over 2,500 theaters across the globe in all 50 states and over 40 countries perform this exclusive musical review free of charge. So I know it started a lot. So it was last night, today at 2:30, tonight at 7, tomorrow at 2:30, and 5:30. So how does this work technically? How do they put it all together?
Well, Music Theater International actually supplies the streaming music. So it's these beautiful orchestrations that they send to the theater companies in files, and then the music is played over the sound system, and we've been rehearsing for several weeks, and we got rehearsal tracks as well, and the script. And every company is free to interpret the music how they want. So some companies are doing full-out production numbers, costume, dancing, and then some companies, like what we're doing, is more like a cabaret-style show where we're sitting on stools, and it's a lot more intimate, and just kind of sitting around and singing some of our favorite Broadway songs.
And so is it a situation where, let's say, okay, it's your theater company, it's youth theater players slot, so you guys do a whole 10 or 15-minute thing, and then it moves on to some other theater company, or is it mix and match songs throughout the whole thing?
All of the companies are performing simultaneously, so we're not connected to each other, but we're all doing it at the same time.
Okay, so how would somebody who wants to watch this, how would they access it?
Well, if they go to the Children's Playtime Productions or Youth Theater Players website, actually it's youththeaterplayers.com, they can get tickets, or they can just walk in. And the theater is actually in the Westfield Palm Desert Mall, inside near J.C. Penney's in a store space, but they've created this little small kind of black box theater in there, and it's really great, very unexpected.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, when did that start? When did they first create that space at the mall? Do you know?
Well, they moved there literally, I think, the week before the COVID lockdown happened.
Okay.
They had been in downtown Palm Springs in a theater there, and made the move, not expecting that any of that was going to happen. So, unfortunately, they moved in and then they had to close down. But over the course of that, close down, they were able to, sort of renovate and remodel and set up the stage and get it all ready again for when they started doing classes with the kids and performances. So now they're kind of back up and all running again.
That's great. Now, is that something you've done or have thought about doing? Is taking your skills and teaching some of the younger folks singing, dancing as part of this, the youth theater?
I've never been asked actually to do it for theater and dance, but I also used to produce like benefit shows for schools, and I worked with a private school in Northern California for 25 years, producing a show for them every spring with like about 120 kids and 20 adults, parents and teachers, and so that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely in my wheelhouse, but I've never been asked to actually teach a singing or dancing class, but certainly would love to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like absolutely you'd be fabulous. Okay, so again, if people want to view this today at 2:30, also at 7 o'clock tonight, then tomorrow 2:30 and tomorrow 5:30. So you can either go to youththeaterplayers.com or childrensplaytimeproductions.com, either one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, or just walk in and buy a ticket at the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I always like to ask the performers like you, Jeffrey, is do you have a go-to song? Let's say if you were going to see somebody's cabaret show or in a small club or as a jam or something, and they said, Jeffrey, come up and sing a song. Do you have a couple of go-to songs that you would pick out in that situation?
I'm actually singing one of them in the show, just coincidentally. It's a song that I've always loved, and it's called the Cafe Song, or Empty Chairs and Empty Tables from Les Mis.
Oh, yes. What a great...
And it sits really nicely in my voice, and I love the message, and it's especially poignant in the context of, we're thinking about people that we've
COVID,
lost
yes.
over the last year. And
oh, my gosh.
So I get a little choked up after I finish singing it every night in this show.
I can imagine. What about a upbeat, fun tune? If you had to do an upbeat, fun tune, what would be your go-to song?
Oh, boy, that's a really good question. I can't think of one right off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay, and I'm looking at your roles. You did Will Parker in Oklahoma, Freddie Eynsford Hill in My Fair Lady. Let's see, Lewis and Pippin. Do you have a favorite role of those that you've done in musical theater?
Boy, Lewis was really fun because he's just such a silly character in Pippin, and very outrageous. So that was pretty fun to do. But really, honestly, my favorite experiences in theater have been dancing in the big ensemble shows. I did Crazy for You. I did Seven Bites for Seven Brothers. I did Me and My Girl. In those big, wonderful dance numbers where you're dancing nonstop for, minutes on end, and you're puffing and puffing at the end. That's the most fulfilling for me. That kind of performing.
What in this time we have left, what advice would you give to a young performer, somebody, maybe the kids that you're working with, somebody, they're 10, 11, 12, 13, and they really want to be a professional performer. What advice would you give somebody like that?
Don't give up. It can be very scary, and you can feel vulnerable and maybe a little exposed when you're putting yourself out there in front of people to perform, but, push through it and use the love and the energy that people are giving back to you to kind of fuel you. And just don't give up, because it can be such a great career if you go for it.
One last question. There's a lot of little clubs in the Palm Springs area where people do one-man, one-woman cabaret shows. Is that something that you think is in your future?
I'm actually working on something right now.
Yay!
Doing a show with another singer. His name's Brad Steeple.
Okay.
And the two of us are cooking something up. So
excellent.
Stay tuned.
Excellent. All right. Jeffrey Scott Adair, he's part of this wonderful thing all together now. Musical Theater International, again, today 2:30 and 7, tomorrow 2:30, 5:30. Youthplayers.com or childrensplaytimeproductions.com, or check out their space at the Westfield Mall. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. All right. Jeffrey Scott Adair will be back with more on the Desert Scene.
From musical theater to literature and all the other stuff we enjoy in between, making desert life so vibrant. You're listening to Bonnie G. and Brayan Mendoza and the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie and Brayan.
So the Travis Scott situation, the Astroworld disaster, tragedy, that really is one that it is. That's the best way to put it. It is a tragedy,
Absolutely.
Absolute tragedy. But I wanted to talk about the sort of
Other side
of it, where there is a real position where we can look back at some of the ways infamously rough acts, and I say quotes like that, were able to actually stop crowds from hurting each other. Because I feel like there's been this case where like a lot of people have this misconception about metal. So metal music, when it comes to like metal, just in general,
has that reputation.
Yes,
Yeah.
Metal music just has this reputation
a little
of
violence,
moshing, and all that stuff. And you know what? There is actual moshing etiquette. I don't know if you know this, Bonnie, but
I did not.
So one of the things is that this might be a little outdated, but they don't encourage a lot of times like smaller women to when they're putting in the mosh, they kind of encourage you to not punch or hurt or punch anybody or kick anybody, but like just do gentle pushing, like almost like pushing.
So they
people.
have to say that? They have to put that in the etiquette? Please don't punch or kick anybody?
Yeah, it's almost like,
oh, gosh.
So one of the things they also tell people is like, if there is a very and I think they mean this for guys too, but like, for example, if you see a short girl in the crowd, do not pick on her. Do not go out of your way to pick on the short girl, but they usually mean like short person. And like in the mosh, it's supposed to be pushing and sort of like roughing each other up a little bit, but it's not meant to be anything like, you're not supposed to come out of it with injuries. If anything, you're supposed to be like, okay, that was fun. Let's go do something else.
Yeah.
But they ask you not to like go out of your way to pick on somebody. Like they literally say, if you see someone shorter than you and you feel like that person is an easy target, don't do it, because don't do it. Have fun. Try to do it with everybody, because like because they don't want to exclude people from entering the mosh, but they also don't want somebody who may have accidentally been put in there to be targeted because they're smaller.
Yeah.
And another thing is, respect it. They say respect each other's space, and like, don't try to cause actual permanent damage. Like if you accidentally hurt somebody permanently, go out of your way to apologize and stop the incident.
I mean, I'm not trying to be flip here, but does it seem bizarre to you that those things have to be said as etiquette?
Yeah, like that. It is. I get what you're saying, because
I'm sorry.
Because a lot of metal shows, a lot of times they have to go out of their way to be like, have this etiquette, because you can't hurt people like that. Like, I mean, if you rough someone up, if you're at a concert having fun because it's metal music, it's not. You're not. The idea is that, hey, maybe you'll feel like a little tiny bruise here, but it's not meant to be permanent. Like, you might not even see the bruise. It's more of like, how when you get injected
don't deliberately go out of your way to trample someone or hurt someone. Talk about Kurt Cobain. I found this really very interesting.
So Kurt Cobain in 1993 actually prevented a woman from being sexually assaulted at his concert. So he noticed that there was a woman being sexually harassed and all that. So he actually went out of his way to stop his concert and said, hey, security, take this person out, because this person's obviously causing distress. And he told the woman, hey, you're in a safe space. Don't worry. We're going to kick him out. And he basically said, this is wrong.
Yep.
Do not do this in my concerts, because my music doesn't encourage this.
Good for him.
And Iron Maiden's Bruce Dickinson also did this a few years later, where he basically saw this guy pushing people and to get to this one girl and he tried to harass her, and he said, stop it, don't do that. And he told security to come out to basically stop it.
Yeah.
And another thing was that Avenged Sevenfold, another metal band, M Shadows, he actually stopped the song because he saw that a fan was passed out and got the doctor's
medical attention.
Medical attention and all that. Corey Taylor has, Corey Taylor, people make fun of his singing voice, but you know what? No one can make fun of his like good guyness, because he actually he stopped an entire show because he saw that there was a fan that was having a seizure, and he told them, we gotta
get them some help.
Get them some help. And Corey Taylor actually said during a show, no one's ever going to die on my watch.
Good for him.
Because he said that there was also another incident where the music got so crazy that more people were having seizures at another event. There was a group of people that were having seizures. And he said, no one's going to die or get hurt. Get the medical attention. We got to stop this. I don't care what I look like, because complain all you want. Yeah. And so another thing was that Disturbed, another band, David Draymond, this guy has sung music about beating up his mom and all that, but it's exaggerated, I assume. But he went out of his way to make sure he saw that there was a girl in the mosh pit and that she was getting picked on and pushed out. And he actually stopped the show and said, take her out. Yeah. Don't pick on her. She's clearly being hurt.
Good for them. I'm also so glad to hear all that.
And the final thing is that Bruce Dickinson also went out of his way to call out a security guard one time for harassing a fan and beating them up. So it shows that there are ways
to handle this where people don't get hurt. Hello, Travis Scott. Want to take a lesson here?
And also for anyone, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you can't see everything on stage. If these people can see...
But if you do see something, how could he have not seen something was going on?
Yes, and especially considering that metal music is way loud, far louder than rap music. I don't think it's impossible to deduct that something is wrong when you hear your fans screaming.
It's screaming and asking people to come up and saying, please stop the show or whatever. So, well, good kudos to those guys. And, Travis Scott, I think there should be a boycott, my personal opinion.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back with more on the Desert Scene in just a moment.
From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater, Radio 111 presents Bonnie G. and Brayan Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brayan.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and now we're joined by a really great guy that I've just gotten to know in the last year or so, Jim Bentley, who's married to a good friend of mine, Jeannie. They had kind of a whirlwind romance, and he is a wonderful singer, lots of experience, and magician. I have not yet seen any of his magic, but hopefully to soon. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good, Bonnie. How are you?
Yeah, good. Well, we'll get into your show. I know you got a big show coming up at Palm Valley Country Club. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally, and how did you get started as a performer?
Believe it or not, I am a native Angelino.
Okay.
Born in downtown Los Angeles and grew up in the entertainment industry. Everybody was behind the scenes. I was named after Jimmy Sarno, who was a publicist, and my grandfather was an accountant at MGM, which I was very lucky to go and see the lot back in the heyday in the 60s when they were doing shows like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and all a great show. It was fun. And my grandmother was a seamstress. She worked with on Jean Harlow's evening gown. She would do all the beading.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I had an uncle that was a grip, another uncle that was an editor, and one wrote for the Academy Awards when Bob Hope was doing it. So
you were destined to be in the business.
Oh yeah, and all of them said, "Don't go in, don't go in." Because you know how that goes. They say, "Oh, what are you, crazy?"
Yeah, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get your ego crushed. Blah blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Jeannie's discovering that, because I do a lot of these nowadays we call self-tapes from home for auditions.
Yeah.
Since the COVID, which is it's been a benefit to somebody like me that lives in Palm Desert to be able to basically almost phone it in and have all these auditions going. So, and she goes, I can't believe that you haven't booked. And I went, oh, I will. I said, it takes it's a numbers game. You gotta,
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's 50 auditions for one.
Exactly. So tell me how did you start singing? Did you study as a kid? How did you get into the singing end of it?
I was listening to Frank Sinatra at the age of 6, and had my record player right next to my bed. So I could go to sleep by Frank. And then when I did junior high and high school, I did musicals. and I was fortunate enough to get some, like the lead in Guys and Dolls, and I played Riff in West Side Story, and so I had to get my chops up because that was the only way I was going to get those parts. And in the interim, I started doing magic. I had an agent at the time. It's a great story. Debbie Reynolds got me my first agent. She was we met at MGM Studios when they were having the auction.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was the big auction, 71, and then LA School District was on strike, and so I was displaying the costumes and bring them out on hangers, and then finally I got so bored with that, I started wearing the costumes out, and started getting laughs. A Marie Antoinette dress, looks great on me. Yeah. But Debbie says, you need to be an actor, and I'll help you if you help me. And I said, okay, what do you need? And she goes, I want you to come to the house. And I went to her house on Bowling Green and went to her private screening of Marie Antoinette, John Shearkraut, and Norma Shear. And she goes, I want you to look for those costumes. And I did. And I found several, not all, because they were pretty beaten up, 1930s, MGM musicals. So anyway, we became friends, and she always, coached me into saying, do you do other things? And I said, yeah, I love doing magic. She goes, well, you should then do some magic, learn how to, really. I said, okay, and then I started doing working Vegas at 16 on summer breaks at Circus Las Vegas, hanging upside down 60 feet on the monorail, getting out of a straitjacket.
Wow.
Yeah, so
good for you.
So I've dabbled into a lot of different things, and also a Vietnam veteran, and spent 2 years in the military.
Thank you for your service.
My pleasure. Yes, it was a great parade in Palm Springs, by the way. I don't know if you saw it, but it was fabulous.
I did not see the parade, but I know, Palm Springs always does it up right. So tell me how what brought you out here to the desert?
I've been coming out here since the 60s. My grandparents had a place in El Dorado Country Club, and their next door neighbor was a guy named Eisenhower. And so I met him and saluted him, and so we would come out and do weekends, and I loved it. And then I ended up buying a home. Using my VA loan to get a place down here because I just wanted to retire down here. I love the weather. I'd rather be hot than cold.
Oh, me too. I hear you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this big show coming up. Palm Valley Country Club starts off the season with All That Jazz, Sunday, November 21st, featuring yourself and Carol Hampton, who I love, another good friend. Dinner, magic, and music, bring your dancing shoes, and of course the Dave Ring Trio, and they're fabulous. So tell us about how this came together.
Well, I'm a member. Jeannie and I both live together. Obviously, we're married in Palm Valley Country Club, and so I've been pitching ideas to do certain things because I feel like maybe there's not enough live music right there where we live, and so I pitched it to the food and beverage Debbie, and she loved the idea, and then I said, yeah, well, I'm gonna do some comedy, do some magic, do some singing. Got a great trio that will do more dance music as well, and Carol Hampton, who I've known over 40 years. In fact, she is the godmother to my oldest daughter.
Oh, well, that's great! Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we have history, and we've done so many shows together. We always have fun and laughs, and she always comes up with a zinger.
Yes,
which I like.
Yeah, she's a witty gal, that's for sure. So tell me about how did you pick the songs that you're going to be doing? How did you choose the material?
Well, as I said, I'm a Frank fan, and I resemble him. I'm not trying to emulate him. I'm not trying to do an impression of him. I mean, I do impressions, but not of him. I I like the way the Great American Songbook, the Fly Me to the Moon, Shadow of Your Smile, which is another great classic, Tony Bennett. And
great
Frank,
tunes.
Obviously, great tune.
Yeah.
I mean, I just look for really heartfelt tunes. One for My Baby. It's just, I like to call myself a saloon singer. It's fun to do the songs, and they got such wonderful lyrics. And I love Sammy Cahn, who I actually got to sing with Sammy Cahn in Beverly Hills.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, it was really cool. We did Love and Marriage. And so I just, I grew up with that music, and it's stuck with me. And, it's music that'll last forever.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about writing a book, Jim, about all your experiences performing in Hollywood? Because I bet you got a lot of stories.
Oh, a boatload. I mean, I did the warm-up on Friends for 9 years.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting show to do, because they would go sometimes 6-7 hours because of rewriting.
Wow.
And it was but the audience hung in there, and they had a great time, and we did a show within a show. So, yeah, I thought about writing. I need to write the book.
I really think it would be a heck of a book. So tell me about the music. So is there a section where it's all music and you singing and Carol singing, and then a separate magic section, or do you kind of mix it up?
Yes. That's an interesting question, because I'm not sure of the numbers of how many people are going to be there. I'll probably want to do I'll probably do like five songs up front to get them basically doing my own warm up. Yeah. And then break the band and do the magic because I don't need the band sitting there.
Right.
I mean, it's nice because I can get rim shots and things like that, but
give them a break.
Seriously, I give them a break. Yeah. I mean, they'll love me for that. Yeah. And then they'll come back up, and Carol and I are going to do a song together. You Make Me Feel So Young.
Oh, great tune. Yeah.
Great tune. It's good for the two of us to do, because I know she will not do it straight. She'll make some weird remark. Yeah. Yeah. Which always makes it interesting. Yeah. Because I'm trying to keep up with her. So we have fun. The bottom line is the folks that come out have fun. Yes. We moved it. It's 5 to 8. There is food. You can get drinks. There's booze. There's all the stuff that you want, or adult cocktails, I guess is the correct way of saying it. And there's no cover charge. There's no 2-drink minimum or anything like that.
I mean, what a great evening. And actually, Eric and I will be there. What a great evening. Palm Valley Country Club, All That Jazz, Sunday, November 21st, featuring Jim Bentley with Carol Hampton. Dinner, Magic, and Music. Dave Ring Trio, 5 to 8, Palm Valley Country Club. You need to RSVP 760-345-2737. 760-345-2737. So I always like to ask singers, Jim. So obviously Frank Sinatra is your, your kind of top artist that songs you like to do. If you go to say there's a lot of jam sessions, open mics, that kind of thing in town, what's your go-to song? If you get up and they say, Jim, come do a number, what's your kind of go-to 1 or 2 songs? Fly Me to the Moon, would you say, is that one of the tops that you do?
Fly Me, and then because I did I did musicals for so many years. I love the song, especially to my new genie in my life, is I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face.
Oh yeah, that's a great song. Yes,
it's just a wonderful song. I mean, it's so funny because I have a tendency to lean towards the ballads. And I don't really mean to, but You Make Me Feel So Young is another one that I love doing. Lady's a Tramp. I mean, that's a classic, great song. Sure. To stay on the upbeat. Yeah. I don't have my list in front of me.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Real quick before we go, Jim, when you go to hear somebody else, when you go to hear another singer, what are you hoping to see and hear from someone else when you go see another performance?
I want to be entertained. Okay. And, I want them. I want to see that they're having a good time up there,
And then you'll have a good time. Yeah.
And then I'll have a good time.
Yeah.
I think that's really so important.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are too stiff when they're up there.
Yeah.
And they have great pipes, but you get a little bored.
Got to sell. All right, Jim Bentley, so glad to have you with us. I can't wait till next Sunday. We're coming out to see the show. Again, next Sunday, November 21st, Palm Valley, RSVP 760-345-2737. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bonnie.
All right.
I'm going to get you up to sing.
Oh, okay, maybe. All right. Have a great afternoon. Okay. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
He likes to read. She likes to sing and act. They both love the Coachella Valley. And they love talking about the desert scene with you on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie G. and Brayan Mendoza.
So Britney Spears,
free.
She's finally
free at last. Good for her.
So I think it was yesterday. Britney Spears finally has been ruled as
emancipated or whatever.
Emancipated finally.
Yeah.
Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Brenda Penny finally terminated the singer's conservatorship.
Good.
And now she is free to spend the money that she wants.
Do her own thing, yeah.
Do her own thing.
Be an adult, for God's sake.
Be an adult and all that. And I think, and they had a huge crowd outside celebrating and all that. And Britney's lawyer said that basically said the time has come for after more than a decade for the conservatorship to be terminated entirely, that it was a demoralizing and unfit situation.
Do you know how many years it was?
13 years.
Gosh. That's just crazy.
And I think one of the things is that there's been a lot of things that we didn't mention on the show, but Britney Spears is also sort of, you know how her mother has not been mentioned? Mm-hmm. There was discussion about the fact that Britney said that her mother seemed to be the mastermind of the whole thing.
Really?
That apparently, like, even though the father was the one that controlled the conservatorship, that the real person who brought it up
was
the
quietly
mother.
In the background, yeah.
The mother and all that. And she also said that she just wants her life back, according to this, to her virtual, like, appearance in court. And she did say 13 years is enough, you know.
More than enough, yeah.
And she posted on Instagram, she posted a picture of herself in a yellow dress saying, "I can't freaking believe it. Again, best day ever." Mm-hmm. And she was talking about how she was crying tears of joy, that and she even wore a shirt that said "Free Britney."
Yeah.
So there has been, I gotta say that it is really nice to see people succeed like that, because I think people forget that it isn't just Britney Spears. It's about, you know, the conservatorship and how
in general,
and
I think particularly famous, well-known entertainers who have people around them who seek to control them and siphon their money away.
Oh yeah, and I think that this leaves this conversation with her succeeding. I'm hoping that people out there who are starting to sort of see their conservatorship differently now, like, hey, I feel like this is a little too similar to that situation, can sort of feel more hopeful to get out of theirs. Because
yes, absolutely.
I have a friend who's in a conservatorship, and she said that it's rough, that it's really rough because she feels very restrained and doesn't feel like she has enough.
Is this a young person or an older person?
Older person,
okay.
Like 60.
Okay. And do you know, I mean, not to get in this person's business, but do you know what the basis of the conservatorship was to begin with?
I think it was more or less like disability based. Like maybe she doesn't have the, she didn't really say so. Like, it's one of those things where it's like a lot of conservatorship is based around the idea that the person can't comprehend what money is or all that. And it's usually not the case.
I was just going to say, I have not done a scientific study of it, but based on what the little I've read in the news, that I think there's an awful lot of abuse of that whole concept.
Yes.
You know.
And I think for me, one of the things is that the Britney Spears situation showed that, like, somebody had a bad time during a specific era of their life.
That doesn't mean that the rest of the life you should have somebody pulling the strings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's really, and it's also the case of like, it's nice to see a bunch of people in the community, in the entertainment community, rooting for someone for once, instead of it being very divisive. So I'm not, again, not to take away from Britney's victory, but it's great to see like the public and celebrities and just a bunch of like politicians, Republican,
all
Democrat,
kind of agree on this.
On this, because it's not just about Britney Spears. It's about like helping people get out of abusive situations. And I think for me, Britney Spears gave a voice to those people. So I'm hoping in a couple years that she isn't just remembered for being a singer or a dancer, that she's remembered.
But of making a difference in this whole legal concept. And yes.
I was going to say, do you think it's going to make a difference, like, in your opinion?
I think maybe a little bit. Yeah,
I
think people might stop and think, because this has been so public, that people might stop and think about a conservatorship. Does this person really need a conservatorship? And what is the motivation behind the person that is running it?
Getting the system fixed, because I think that there are valid ways for somebody to say, hey, I'm really bad with money. I do need someone to help me budget and all that, and do that. I think that there are ways that a conservatorship could work. And I know that maybe so you might say, well, then just hire a budget manager. But I think a conservatorship, the idea is that someone has your money, and ideally speaking, you could write in a request or tell them, hey, I want to buy this, and they'll give you the money. And it's very rare that they won't. And it could only be for something like, hey, don't buy a mansion. I just think it sounds like the requirements, the burden of proof on the person that wants to be in charge of the conservatorship, that this other person cannot function or cannot handle their affairs. I think the burden of proof needs to be much higher. Oh, yeah. And it certainly should be a case where, like, somebody, even if you don't think they quote-unquote function, that person still is still entitled to their money. And the fact is that they should come ultimately to their own agreement of when and
how long this should last.
How long, when, and all that. And I don't think they should last forever. I think it should be a thing of like every year or every 2 years.
Check it out. It's just like a person going up to the parole board. Hey, let's check what's the situation now. It might be different than it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
And I think that the Britney case will certainly open
I think so. I hope
things
so.
up, and I'm hoping. But I'm glad that she's free, because that
means
Britney.
Go, Britney.
There's hope for the future.
Yep. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
Bonnie and Brian continue with the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and we're really happy right now to be joined by another buddy of mine, Susan Stein, who is the Desert Fashionista. I like to think of her as the number one fashionista behind Fashion Week, Palm Springs Life, all kinds of great stuff. Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm great, Bonnie. How are you?
Good. And so in addition to all of your fashion work, you have an art show coming up on November 18th at Saks Fifth Avenue. I did not know you were an artist, so tell us about that.
I didn't know I was an artist either, actually. I still don't think of myself that way. I think of myself as someone who started painting about almost 2 years ago, right before COVID, and wasn't sure, what it was going to lead to, and I fell in love immediately. And then I started sort of posting things on Facebook and got a great response. So I said, well, I'm going to keep this up. And I actually love it. And Saks, I mean, whoever thought this, like an art show, it's crazy. Yeah. But Saks and I have a great relationship. We always have because of fashion and Fashion Week. And I spent many years working for them in New York. So anyway, they asked me if I would like a one-woman show. And I said, sure. And they came to me, and we've had a great response.
Excellent. Now tell me about your painting. What kinds of things do you work in oils? Do you work in all different kinds? And do you do still life, or what's your style in general?
Yeah. Well, I do acrylic.
Okay.
I love acrylic because I dry very quickly. I'm a bit impatient, and I'm a fast painter.
Okay.
So oils are something I'm not quite ready to handle because I don't quite know how to do it yet.
Okay.
Properly. I've spoken to a lot of people. I am contemporary. When I first started, everything turned into a flower. It was just a joke. Anything I painted, I would go, oh, there's another flower.
Okay.
But really, I was like very frustrated. But then what happened is I decided I was going to do something more structured, and I did something very typical Virgo. It's very geometric. And I love color. That's really the premise behind why I paint. Yeah. Because I love what you can do with, a few colors. And so I started these geometrics that wound up they were organic, big, and they wound up having stories inside of them when I finished them. Oh, great. And I love the way things sort of grew. And there's a divided opinion on them. Some people love the geometrics. Some people hate them. They don't understand them. Some people love my flowers. And I've been told the best part of it, and if you know me, is that there's a lot of energy in my painting. Yeah. So I have this ridiculous amount of energy anyway. So, that's sort of what this is all about. And that's sort of what it is, but I love it. I mean, I still love what I do, as my day job, as they call it, year job. But this has been really great.
Do you foresee? You're probably way ahead of me on this. Do you foresee someplace down the road some of your art being turned into clothing, like having a T-shirt with your art on it, or something like that?
Well, actually, one of my friends said, Susan, would you do a painting on a dress for me? So she is wearing that to the art show. Excellent. And it's really great. I took the geometrics and sort of made it work. So, a lot of people have said that. I went, oh, no, but it is sort of a natural progression. Yeah. But I don't particularly like what I do on clothes. It's also different painting on fabric. So I'm getting there. Who knows? Who knows? I didn't know I'd be painting at this time.
So are you somebody that do you is there a certain time of day that you kind of always go paint, or is it a spur of the moment? You wake up at 2 a.m. and go paint, or how does that work?
Oh God, sure. I'm up at 2 a.m. anyway, but I don't paint. Okay. I should maybe, but what I do is when I get up in the morning, I really do. That's when I do my painting. Okay. Because the light is just spectacular. Yeah. I'm lucky enough to have great light in part of my house, and that's where I work. So I get up and I'm inspired. I'm either working on a painting or I start a new one. And then sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, I'll get an idea and a feel, and I just do it. But it's a luxury for me to paint because I'm busy, and for me to have that time to myself is great. Yeah. But now, where obviously you're having this show 6 to 8 p.m. on November 18th, Saks Fifth Avenue. Are there other places like websites? Are there other places people can see your art and buy it? Yes, absolutely. They can. I have a website called SusanSteinStyle.com. Okay. And I don't have all of my paintings up there yet because I wanted to keep some a surprise for this show. But they will, hopefully what's left will go up there after that. And it's called My Studio. It's that part. I talk about my fashion and what I do, and then all the other opportunities, and then I do have a segment on the menu called My Studio. Yeah. And are your paintings, do they vary in size? Are they mostly large, mostly small, or kind of a mix? No, they vary in size. Okay. I haven't done anything really small. I've done some 10 by 10s, some 12 by 18s. Yeah. And I think the biggest I have is like 5 by 4. Okay. And I do have a 5 foot by 5 foot sitting there ready to be painted, but that's my challenge. I don't want to have to go back to it. I want to find time where I can really just work on that and see what happens. All right.
Let's talk about your fashion for just a second. Tell us what's coming up as far as your fashion career.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is December 5th, we're producing the Animal Samaritans Handsome Hounds show. Excellent. And that's with handsome men from the desert and their dogs who walk the runway, and their sponsors. We have about 20 fabulous men this year, and we're doing it at the Air Museum.
Oh, great.
So they're going from runway to runway. It's very hard to say that. But and we're opening up the hangar, and you'll be involved with the planes and so forth.
Okay.
So we generally have a lot of people for that, but that you can find at animalsamaritans.org.
Okay.
And tickets are available there. It's a luncheon and a fashion show and a lot of other things that happen. So, and then I start with Fashion Week, which is in March, although I've been working on it all year, but the dates are March 19th through the 26th of 2022.
Okay.
It'll be the first one in 2 years, like everyone else. And I've already booked. We have 9 shows in 1 week.
Wow.
So every night there's either 1 or 2 shows. So we're thinking about a 10th show, actually. So, I'll need some standby resuscitation. But it's a lot of shows. I have designers coming from Amsterdam, from Canada, from New York, from England, and of course the local El Paseo stores. Michael Costello is coming back, who is local. He lives here again, but he's an LA designer, and he also does a lot of fashion for Revolve. So, which is a great online, collection. So that's going to be fun too. And then we do another benefit for the Animal Samaritans, and that's going to feature Anika Brown.
Oh, yes.
Who is a local designer with an African influence. So those models will be professional models, but we're using the models and their own dog.
Yeah.
So it's great to see how they've trained them to walk the runway without a leash.
Yeah. Wow. That is impressive. Yeah.
They just nip at their heels, as I say.
So I have to ask you, I know how many how many years have you been doing Fashion Week now?
This will be our 15th year.
Wow.
We've been working on it for 17, but it's our 15th year. Yes, I know. It's incredible.
How when you first started, did you anticipate it becoming what it is now?
No, but I knew that when I started with Palm Springs Life, they were looking for a fashion editor, and I was doing a show, and I got to know them, and they asked me to do it. And then when I got there, they said, we want to do a fashion show for El Paseo. And I said, because I've always wanted to do the kind of show you would see in New York or Paris or London, for real people. Like, you don't have to be a buyer or an editor.
Right.
So we created these very professional shows. The first one, we had one designer and one evening, which was sort of a question and answer. And we had about 250 people. And now we're up to close to 1,000 people a night.
Yeah.
We're altering that a bit because of COVID this year. So, and no, I never expected it. And I really gave myself, Bonnie, a 5-year goal. And in 5 years, I said, hey, I'm not stopping this. It's like my baby. So it's gone very quickly, except for the week of fashion show. The week of the shows is, the week before, I think, is the most tedious one. But it's fun.
I have to ask you a question. If you had to describe... Two couple questions. If you had to describe Palm Springs style fashion-wise, how would you describe it?
Okay, I can do that easily.
Okay.
I am convinced that when I got here, I stood around and I said, it looks like camp for adults. Everybody's wearing everybody was wearing like linen shorts, and I love Tommy Bahama, but tropical shirts. Yeah. And the first thing I said to my husband is, you must get some Tommy Bahama shirts. Yeah. So that was sort of fun, and I think that, I don't want to take credit for it, but I think that we've become very sophisticated. We've motivated people to get dressed up for Fashion Week, and then I noticed that people, started to, what I would have called overdress previously for a lot of events. But even just last night, I went to an event, and there was, what I love is now people are trying everything.
Yeah.
We're so mixed up. We have such diversity. So you'll see people in sequins and very high heels. You'll see people in jeans, and you'll see guys in shorts and shirts. And boy, what a great way to live that. You know, you can really wear whatever you feel like it.
Yeah.
But it's not limited to camp and linen anymore.
Right. And what would you say is, you know, people talk about rules, and I'm not sure about fashion rules, but particularly women, and, you know, although the demographic is spread out, there's a lot of folks over 50 in the Palm Springs area, and women still want to look great. What would you say, from what you see in the Palm Springs area, is the biggest fashion mistake that most women make?
There's a tricky political question.
Yes, I know.
So I think the most important thing with clothes is fit.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the place that your mistakes occur. And I think that you have to look at your legs every year, and some women have just gorgeous legs forever. But, you know, they can go shorter, but they don't have to go really, really short.
Yeah.
I also think some women wear long clothes, and the midi length, which is right in the middle of your bottom of your calf almost, it's really not the most flattering. Not flattering,
yeah.
At all. It just chops your leg right off. And you know what? It's never been successful in retailing.
Yeah.
Since the 80s.
Susan, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked that question because it's a long question. Thank you so much. Go see Suze, the art show, 6 to 8 p.m., November 18th, Saks Fifth Avenue. Check out her art. And, of course, Fashion Week coming up. You are such a blessing to the desert. Thank you so much for being here. And congratulations.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Susan,
have a great day. All right.
Then. Thanks. Bye.
We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene in just a bit.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brayan Mendoza.
So today I was going to say today we are on the show today. I don't know. Yeah. I always start my show saying, so today we're going to do this. So I was going to say that I always forget how to say his name, but if you're familiar with the songs Nights in White Satin, Tuesday Afternoon, Gemini Dream.
Graham Edge.
I always forget that's how, it's just a unique way of saying it. Yeah. But like Graham Edge, you can thank him for that because the co-founder and drummer of the Moody Blues has passed away at age 80. I think that he passed away from natural causes, from my understanding. I think that he just passed away from a stroke. Not a stroke, but like cancer and all that.
Okay.
So it's a shame. Have you ever listened to the Moody Blues?
Oh, I like Nights in White Satin. Yeah, I like that song. I mean, wasn't a huge fan, but that's a great song.
No, I think that's actually my favorite one too. That one's actually a really good song. But I also wanted to say that Gavin O'Harley, who was famous for playing Chuck Cunningham on Happy Days, passed away as well. Now, if you heard the phrase Chuck Cunningham syndrome, it's a famous trope in television history where a character just disappears and no one mentions them ever again.
And that happened?
That happened on Happy Days, where his character
just vanished.
Basically, I think he went upstairs and never came downstairs again. And he was famous for that, and I think he wasn't in a bad mood for it. I think he was actually kind of happy that he was known for that. But I've seen some shows where, like, I was watching a show called Angel, and this girl named Kate, who's like has a crush on the main character, who's like going through her own storyline, and then she just disappears. One day she's just tired, and he picks her up, and he never takes her home because we never see her again on that show. Have you ever had that? Have you ever seen a show where somebody disappeared?
I have to not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'll have to think about it.
Dynasty is the king of all that because I saw some Dynasty episodes, but rest in peace to the two of them. And I do want to say that it's time for
Today in Pop Culture.
There we go. So November 1st, other than the fact that it's Veterans Day, That was in 2013, November 11th, was the last video to be rented out.
From like Blockbuster?
Yeah,
wow.
the last video.
What year? 2013?
Yes.
Okay.
And the last movie was called This Is the End.
Okay. This is the end.
This is the end. And it was in Hawaii. And then in 2005 of November 11th, the National Toy Hall of Fame inducted a cardboard box.
Really?
Yes.
Well, the kids love to play with cardboard boxes. It's one of their favorite toys, little kids, yeah.
And they said that with nothing more than a little imagination, those boxes can be transformed into forts or houses or spaceships.
Anything. Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Where anything is possible. And
I love that.
I think that's like the funniest thing. And also, I don't know if you remember a show called Too Close for Comfort.
I didn't really watch it, but I remember the title of the show.
Yeah, and this show finally premiered. It featured Ted Knight. It featured Nancy Dussault and a couple actors. So it didn't
last that long, did it?
No, I think it lasted one season on ABC, and then it lasted 3 more seasons on syndication.
Okay.
So it wasn't super popular, but, it was noteworthy enough to be on this website.
Okay.
And I was going to say that in 1946, November 12th, Song of the South opens in theaters.
What year?
1946.
46, okay.
Song of the South is a controversial Disney movie because it's based on the books, the Uncle Remus stories.
There's some racist overtones, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just say it's a movie that, if you really think about it, it doesn't work anymore. It's also boring.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah, okay.
And this was also the day, in 1939, but you ever see Fantasia?
Of course. Oh my gosh, yes.
So Fantasia,
fabulous.
So Bela Lugosi actually posed for the demon monster Chernobyl for Night on Bald Mountain for Fantasia, but the animator at this time was Bill Tata was not happy with it, so he re-scrapped that. So that was an actual event that happened. Was Bela Lugosi posed as the monster from that movie?
Okay.
And then I'm trying to get to these really quickly. Give me a second. And November 13th, the next day in 1940, literally a year and a day later, Fantasia opens in theaters.
Yeah, I would love to see that again. If you've never seen Fantasia, you really owe it to yourself to see it. It's just pretty amazing.
Fantasia was, it was this big event where apparently what happened was that Disney wanted to do this where every year there would be a new version of Fantasia with new songs,
new stuff,
new animation. But because it failed at the box office, they scrapped it. It was going to be this big event where every year was Fantasia.
So they stuck with the original, and
yes.
they just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the idea was that every other year would be Fantasia 1945, Fantasia 1950. Yeah. But it just didn't work out, and it happens. Oh, well.
But you know what? That's fine
movie.
with me because Fantasia, the original, is great. All right, I have to say thank you again to Jeffrey Scott Adair, Jim Bentley, and Susan Stein. Wonderful guests today. So much going on. Big season is rolling with precautions, with COVID precautions. But go out there and check out some events safely. Get your vaccines, wear your masks, and have fun and stay safe.
Have fun, stay safe, and happy Veterans Day.
See you next week.